Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're extremely pleased to have the Prime Minister of Japan here this week, addressing the joint session of Congress and underscoring how important it is to our Asian allies that we defeat the Russians in Ukraine. The Japanese Prime Minister has previously said, if you want to send President Xi a message, beat Putin in Ukraine. They have supplied financial assistance as well, and I think having him this particular week further underscores that we're in a worldwide situation here against the enemies of democracy, led by China, Russia, and Iran.
Well, the Senate expects very shortly to receive articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives for Alejandro Mayorkas. In my view, the Senate should conduct a trial. I think it's clear that this administration, President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas, have presided over the worst border crisis in American history. 7.4 million people apprehended in just 3 years in office, 1.8 million gotaways, so over 9 million people that have been come into the country illegally, and that doesn't include the unknown gotaways. And of course, we know on that list were 351 people who are on the terrorist watch list. This is an absolute debacle at the southern border. It is a national security crisis. There needs to be accountability, and the Senate needs to conduct a trial where senators have an opportunity to examine the evidence, examine the record, and come to a conclusion. The American people deserve accountability on this issue. The polls show that the majority of Americans support impeaching Secretary Mayorkas, and I believe it is fundamental to our role as United States senators to conduct a trial, to get the evidence out there, and to come to a conclusion one way or the other, and that is our intention as Republican senators. And we look forward to receiving the articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives sometime soon.
Joe Biden and his Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, have surrendered the southern border to the criminal cartels and to drug dealers. And this is a crime against America. The American people deserve accountability. So Mayorkas has now been impeached for willfully refusing to enforce the laws of the United States. And Chuck Schumer and every Democrat in the Senate is doing everything they can to bury the impeachment clause. What they are actually trying to do is nuke impeachment. This is a big deal. There have only been 2 impeachments of cabinet members in the history of this country. The last was 148 years ago. There is cause for the impeachment. These are serious charges, credible evidence, and the Constitution calls for a full trial. But Schumer and the Democrats, every Democrat senator, doesn't want that trial because they don't want the evidence to be exposed to the American people. No. We have close to 10 million illegal immigrants that have come to this country since Joe Biden has been president. Democrats are culpable. They coddle the criminals. And Chuck Schumer is afraid that if this damaging evidence comes out, it's going to hurt them in November. And their major concern is job security in November, not border security or the security of our nation. Republicans are committed to a secure border and making sure the American people get the accountability that we all deserve.
Well, folks, if you like your car, truck, or SUV and it has an internal combustion engine, good luck keeping it. Joe Biden and all of his greenie friends in the White House are forcing electric vehicles on our citizens across the United States. And the reality is this is a huge boon for China, and not just China, but for Russia as well. Those who are wishing to destroy America are committing atrocities against Ukrainians and enslaving children to gain access to our critical minerals. We saw this in Afghanistan with the critical minerals there. We left it for the Taliban, and the Chinese have now over 60 contracts on those minerals. We see this in Ukraine as well, with their fields of critical minerals and a huge reserve of lithium. So as Biden mandates his green fantasy upon the United States, he fails to mention that he's actually going to be enriching and lining the pockets of our adversaries. So these rules that the Biden administration is forcing on us, they're way out of touch with middle America. I drive an SUV back in Iowa. I actually like it, and I love using ethanol. So, of course. But it's really out of touch with folks across America, especially the folks back home in Iowa, right there in rural Montgomery County. And so I'm working with my Senate GOP colleagues and others to let Joe Biden know that his electric vehicle mandates, they are on a road to nowhere. Let's invest in America.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody had a nice break. I certainly did. And one of the things I got to do over the last 2 weeks was we had the new NIH director, Monica Bartagnoli, came to West Virginia University to see all of the research and all of the innovation that's occurring in our medical centers there. I'm really proud to feature both what we're doing in terms of addressing addiction, Alzheimer's, stroke, heart, cancer. And I think what she found is what she already knew, but it was really reinforced for her that a lot of the solutions are not in Boston or San Francisco. They're in the heartland of America, where the institutions have rural Americans that are coming every day to seek help both in the medical field and in the mental health field to be able to meet the devastating problems of a cancer diagnosis or an Alzheimer's diagnosis. And so I just want to thank her and her team for coming, and for the West Virginia University team showing what's going on all through West Virginia in terms of meeting the challenges of biomedical research. I do want to also add my voice to the chorus that Senator McConnell, Senator Thune, Senator Barrasso certainly, and I know Senator Ernst as well, and Senator Daines, don't want to leave anybody out. And that is to say to Senator Schumer, you have got to hold a trial on Secretary Mayorkas. The numbers are staggering. The amount of people that I talked to over the last 2 weeks in my home state of West Virginia, which is far removed from the southern border, talking about what this problem is to them and what it means as Americans, as folks that are ridden over and overridden by the scourge of fentanyl. This Secretary Mayorkas needs to be held accountable. He needs to answer straight questions. He needs to not just have straight questions answered, but we need to hear the case that led the House of Representatives to vote for impeachment. So I think it would be a disservice to this country, a disservice to the act of impeachment, to not move forward with a full trial. And I hope that that's what we see. Thank you.
Well, let me join the choir. Joe Biden's border is a mess, and I agree with my colleagues that every Senate Democrat needs to join Republicans in holding the administration accountable when the impeachment articles come over from the House. Joe Biden is also working overtime to force a very radical green agenda into virtually every area of our lives. And first of all, let me say this. I don't have a problem with electric vehicles. It's an amazing technology. My problem is when the government forces us through mandates to have to drive them. I enjoy my Ford F-150. It runs on recycled dinosaurs. I enjoy that. But Biden announced, not ethanol, Senator Ernst, but recycled dinosaurs. First, Biden announced $1 billion to build EV chargers at the southern border, while completely ignoring the actual crisis on the border, and that's nearly 10 million illegal migrants coming across. Then, when he thought it couldn't get worse, Biden's EPA issued a rule limiting tailpipe emissions, forcing the majority of cars and light-duty trucks produced to be EVs by 2032. That's not how it really works, Mr. President. As it is, our car dealers can barely get EVs off their lots. Go talk to your Ford dealer right now. The Ford Lightnings were supposed to be the greatest thing ever to hit the market. They are massively discounting Ford Lightning pickups right now because they can't sell them. Why is that? I can tell you Montanans don't want to be forced to drive an EV. They just don't make sense with our Montana way of life. We've got a lot of windshield time in Montana. It means we drive a lot, long distances. We have freezing temperatures. We have now, they call it range anxiety. This is a new term with the green hallucination projected by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And next, the administration issued a rule that would force semi-trucks to become electric vehicles. A diesel-powered semi's range can be up to about 2,000 miles. An EV semi, about 330 miles. Diesels can fill up in about 20 minutes at the pump. EV semi, at least 3 hours to charge. And by the way, the grid capacity is having a hard time supporting it. Now they're shutting down baseload power in states like Montana. Diesel semis can cost up to $150,000. Average EV semi rings it at around $300,000. Let's be clear, truckers can't afford this. It increases costs for consumers. It makes the roads less safe. Now, I challenge anybody here, find me a trucker who wants to do a long haul from Glendive, Montana to Butte, Montana in an electric semi in January, and to quote George Strait, I'll find you some oceanfront property in Arizona. It's time for Biden and the Democrats to abandon their climate fantasy and to get real.
Leader McConnell, will you ask?
Leader McConnell, do you agree with former President Trump's statement that Israel is absolutely losing the PR war? And speaking of the military operation in Gaza, you've got to get it over with, and you have to get back to normalcy.
My view is when you have a Democratic ally, somebody we're closely aligned with, I don't think it's appropriate for us to give them advice about whether to have an election or what their military strategy ought to be. They didn't start this war, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to achieve their goal, which is to eliminate Hamas from being able to govern and effectively control Gaza.
Leader McConnell.
Has there been any discussion among Republican leaders, and can you talk about this, about possibly requesting the House to delay sending over the impeachment articles so you can make a better case to have a more fulsome Senate trial?
Yeah, I don't think we have any advice to give the Speaker about how to handle the issue on timing. On substance, as I've said all along, I hope that at some point here the Speaker will put the Senate passed supplemental on the floor. We also need to get 702 done because it expires on April 17th. So we've got our hands full here.
Leader McConnell, the Arizona Supreme Court just moved forward with a near total ban on abortion. Given your role and the Senate Republicans' role in confirming 3 justices overturned Roe, are you concerned about voter backlash on this issue?
Well, you're asking me about an Arizona Supreme Court decision. I haven't taken a look at it yet, but I'm certain, as you are, that this whole issue will continue to unfold during the course of the campaign.
Leader McConnell, do you agree with former President Trump that this issue should remain with the states, and that it shouldn't be a federal ban?